Thank you. When the University of California at Irvine was first made, interestingly, the university was built without any sidewalks. And so what the university did is they waited and they looked at the paths that people walked around the buildings on the campus, and that's where they built the sidewalks on top of. A buddy of mine who teaches at UC Irvine took this picture right here. Because if the university didn't employ a method like this, they might end up with a path that looks something like this, where the path that people are supposed to walk is on the left, and the path that people actually want to walk and do walk is on the right. The path on the right is called a desire path, and I've been obsessed with this idea of desire paths for the better part of a few years. And that takes us to last May. Last May I graduated university about 11 months ago. And when I graduated, I had a pretty robust resume that I'd built up throughout my time at university. I'd worked 3 co-op internships, including one where I hired over 200 co-op students for a global telecom firm. My school named me the Co-op Student of the Year, fancy title for one of them. I graduated with good marks and highest honors, and my favorite part is the day I graduated, I received 2 full-time job offers that were actually pretty comparable to one another. And so when I was trying to decide which of these jobs to choose between, I was kind of stuck because both offered a similar career progression and salary. And so I really wanted to assess the impact that they would have on my life. And to do so, I turned to a theory of happiness from Martin Seligman. And he says that how happy something makes you can be attributed to 3 factors. There's how much pleasure something brings you, there's how engaged you are with that thing, and there's how much meaning it adds to your life. And I looked at how these 2 jobs would add meaning and pleasure and engagement to my life. And again, I came to pretty much the same conclusion. Both jobs would give me a good amount of pleasure. You know, every job has its ups and downs, but both would give me a good amount of pleasure and engagement. But what they wouldn't give me is meaning. And this kind of struck me because I'd worked really hard up to this point where I was able to get these job offers. And, you know, I'd saved up a bit of money from what I'd done throughout these co-op terms and throughout university with working part-time as well. And so I asked myself, you know, if these jobs are at one end of the meaning spectrum, what's kind of all the way over here on the other end of the meaning spectrum? Because I'd saved up a little bit of money throughout my time at university. I still had 20 grand of debt the day I graduated. I still have that today, but that's beside the point. What is the most meaningful thing I could do with my time? And then suddenly it hit me. This is a picture of me when I was 15 or 16, about a decade ago. I'm on the beach when my friends and family are presumably on the sidelines somewhere, playing volleyball or whatever people do on the beach. I'm reading a book on stress management. It's called The Joy of Stress. I don't remember it, but I'm sure I was doing this. I've been obsessed with this idea of becoming as productive as possible for the last better decade or so. You know, getting more out of your time, getting more done in less time, getting more energy so you can get more things done, and getting more focus and concentration because you need that to get things done. You know, none of this motivation stuff, but like actually the practical stuff. And so this is what I saw the day I graduated. This is what I saw in front of me. I saw these paved paths on the left, the paths that were kind of set out for me, these 2 full-time job offers, and I saw the trail on the right, which was a bit rockier, was a bit bumpier, but it was the path that I wanted to take. So I crunched all the numbers, and 11 months ago, I declined those 2 jobs to start a project named A Year of Productivity. And the idea behind A Year of Productivity is quite simple. From May 1st, 2013 through May 1st, 2014, I'm devouring everything I could get my hands on about becoming more productive and writing about it on the website. So that includes reading as many books and academic journal articles as I can get my hands on and then writing about them. That includes interviewing the most productive people that I'm able to get interviews with and write about that on the website too. And that includes doing these weird, wacky, crazy productivity experiments on myself, using myself as a guinea pig to explore this idea of becoming productive. And interestingly, this idea of experimenting with productivity kind of took over somewhere through the project, and I became obsessed with it, just as much as I'm obsessed with productivity. I'm crazy about managing my focus and my attention, so I lived in total isolation for 10 days and didn't talk to people or communicate with people or feel any sunlight for those 10 days. I meditated for 35 hours over the course of a week. I watched 70 hours of TED Talks over the course of a week, 296 TED Talks. And you might think, what does that have to do with productivity? But I assessed how overloading my mind with information would be impacted by things like meditation and taking breaks and so on and so forth. You know, probably the biggest focus and attention suck you have on you is your smartphone. I used mine for only an hour a day for 3 months. I'm crazy about managing my time and getting more out of how I spend my time, so I woke up at 5:30 every day for a few months. I took a 3-hour afternoon Spanish-style siesta for a few weeks. I worked 90-hour weeks, alternating between working 90 hours one week, then 20 hours the next, then 90, then 20 for a month. I'm crazy about getting more energy because I think the amount of energy that you have is kind of the fuel that you burn in order to be productive throughout the day. So I reduced my body fat from 17, which is considered average in a male, down to 10%, which is considered athletic in a male. While I gained 10 pounds of lean muscle mass at the same time. I drank only water for an entire month, getting rid of alcohol and caffeine, coffee and tea, and everything that isn't water. To spice things up, I sometimes added a lemon wedge. I was a total slob for an entire week, where I ordered takeout every single day and got really lazy. I followed that path for the last 11 months. And I have a business degree, so I'm always focused on the outcomes of the decisions that I make. So how did I do? Well, simply put, the project blew up. Hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world, countries I've never heard of. I'm bad at geography, but I've never heard of some of these countries, have visited the website. But not only that, they've benefited from these experiments. I've done something with my life that I wrote about afterwards, and then people from all over the world took those lessons and made their own lives better because of that. But not only that, I'm receiving all these other benefits that I never would have even dreamed of if I had accepted one of these 2 full-time jobs. Let's get the money stuff out of the way. I'm making way less money doing this than I would have with those 2 full-time jobs. They were pretty good jobs. But the way I do the money with the project is if somebody finds something that I make to be valuable, they can pitch in a few bucks to help me build the project up. And so what that means is people from all over the world have helped pitched in because I have no ads and no sponsorships on the website. And I take 75% of that, shunt it right back into the project, keep 25%, and the project grows. It's incredible. The project has received a ton of media attention from national and international media outlets, something I never would have experienced if I had taken those 2 full-time jobs. I'm meeting these crazy, awesome people from all over the world who are following similar journeys that I am. For some reason, people want to pay me to come into their companies and speak to their employees, and so I do that. I help make their employees more productive, and most of all, I'm having fun. Following that path worked. And I'm not saying this to try to impress you because of listing all my accomplishments, but rather to impress upon you how valuable this idea can be. And once I kind of had this seed planted in my mind a few years ago of these desire paths, it became kind of like what I refer to as the Mini Cooper effect, where if you're about to buy a Mini Cooper, suddenly you notice that there's hundreds of Mini Coopers all over the road because your reticular activating system filters out everything that isn't a Mini Cooper. That's what this became for me. So I started noticing these desire paths all over the place. For example, have you ever searched for something on a website? Well, if you have a website, do you know what people are searching for? Because it's one thing for somebody to visit your website, and it's another thing for somebody to tell you what they want by searching for it. Same with your help forums. That's what people actually want help with. This is a cool story that I like. When Twitter was first started, hashtags weren't a feature of the original Twitter. And in fact, when some people started using them, this is a quote from Evan Williams, Twitter's co-founder. He said that hashtags are simply too nerdy to go mainstream. But then what happened was people like Chris Messina started sending out tweets asking people, hey, how do you feel about using a hashtag to denote certain topics in our tweets so we can search for them later and follow along the conversation? And people started doing it. They started forging along, creating that desire path that other people followed. And now hashtags are a feature of Twitter. They're officially supported there in every client. I think I read a stat that 25% of tweets contain a hashtag. This is a Super Bowl ad with a hashtag in it. This is a TV advertisement with a hashtag in it, where the hashtag is bigger than every other bit of text in the advertisement. And this is an internet advertisement that uses hashtags. So how can you use this to make your products better? Well, let's say you work for a company that makes a laptop that looks like this. How can you use this idea of desire paths to make this product better? Well, I would suggest looking at how people use the product in the first place. Instead of people trying to shoehorn their human behavior into your product, how about you make a product that adapts to how people actually want to use it? What a crazy idea. So let's say you did these surveys and interviews and you find out that only 0.2% of people know what these lights do down here. So maybe we can either move them or get rid of them. But 80% of people use the trackpad on your laptop every single day. So maybe that can be a feature that you make bigger. Maybe you can make the trackpad bigger and better and invest more of your resources into it. Maybe it turns out that people like these ports down here, plugging their headphones into your laptop, but they don't like the eyesore that they are on the front. So we can take this product and shape it so that people's behavior fits better with it. So maybe we can take these ports, put them on the side, get rid of those lights, make the trackpad bigger, and make a laptop that people actually want to use, like this one. So how did this idea work for me over the last year? Here's that familiar chart. This journey has had its ups and downs for sure over the last year, but I think on the whole it's safe to say that it's been a pleasurable ride and that I've been engaged through the ride itself. But when I thought about how much meaning the project has added to my life, I got kind of tripped up. Because even though the project has been fun a lot of the time, there's sometimes when it's the very last thing that I want to do. You know how you sometimes have days when you're just not feeling it? I have those days too, even though I'm doing a year of productivity. This was a day I had a couple of weeks ago when I was making these slides when I just wasn't feeling it. A typical day, if you will. I woke up at 5:30 because I was doing that experiment to wake up at 5:30. From 6 until 8, I worked out and I planned out my entire day while I was at the gym. From 8 until noon, I did email, I researched, and I wrote articles that would hopefully help people on the website. From noon until 1, I had a media interview. From 1 until 3, I did more academic research, and I wrote. From 3 until 3:30, I meditated. From 3:30 until 6, I researched, and I did some website maintenance. From 6 until 7, I had another media interview. From 7 until 8, I meditated a bit more, and I read. And from 8 until 8:30, I had my nighttime ritual. I went to sleep, and I did it all again the next day. This is a picture from when I lived in total isolation for 10 days. I don't think I've ever been this depressed and felt such intense mood fluctuations, but I did it because it's part of my year of productivity. It was a part of the experiment. But I hated this experiment when I was in the middle of it. This is a picture from my experiment to be a total slob for a week. I'll be honest, I kept the food in there for dramatic effect so the pictures would look better when it was done. But I hated it during the middle of it. You know, the first couple of days were really, really fun when you can just kind of eat whatever and watch as much House of Cards as you want. But at the end of the day, you know, once that initial excitement and enthusiasm wore off, I couldn't stand this experiment either. There's some mornings when the very last thing that I want to do is wake up at 5:30 to go to the gym, but I do it anyway because it's part of the project. But even when I look back on these experiments and these tougher times during the year of productivity, I can't help but feel like it has meaning. Like the experiment, like this project has been valuable for me. And I ran across a quote, I forget when I came across it, but it was a quote on how reflecting upon your experiences projects meaning onto them. And the quote is from Sonia Liba-Mirsky. She was quoted in an article in the New York Times on happiness. And she talked about vacations, and she said that trips aren't all perfect, but we remember them as perfect. Because for every time I remember living in isolation, I remember how much that helped people and media interviews that I got to do where I talked about it. I remember afternoons when I sat in a coffee shop by myself on my laptop, reading and writing and watching the people while I drank a lot of tea during the afternoon. It was great. I loved it. And I still remember to this day laying in the treehouse in our backyard as I listened to a TED Talk in my ears. I've never been that inspired in my life. When I look back, this project is the most meaningful thing I've ever done. And it's all because I looked at my desire paths and followed them. Thank you.